Most Beatles fans, the press too, tended to regard John Lennon as the leader of the group. He was the sassiest, the most outspoken. His comebacks to reporters captured some of the natural antipathy youngsters feel for adults in charge. "What's your educational background?" "Lousy." "Will you sing something?" "No, we need money first." Together with bandmates Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and George Harrison, Lennon at 24 was one of the most recognizable persons in Britain and America, a leader of the post-war generation. He was born on October 9, 1940, at Oxford Street Maternity Hospital in Liverpool, England. Some say during a German air raid, but that's not true. The only child of Julia and Alfred Lennon. Alfred Lennon was a bit of a character, a glad-hander, a person with a happy-go-lucky outlook, but not good at keeping commitments. His father, Jack Lennon, had been a music hall performer. Alf took after him and was not unlike the ham vaudevillian portrayed by Laurence Olivier in the film The Entertainer. His specialty was doing imitations of American jazz singers. Raised in an orphanage, he had rickets as a child and wore leg braces. Alf was witty, though, and musical, and a good talker, traits he passed along to his son, John. They also looked uncannily alike. Typical of his eccentric sense of humor was how he met his future wife, Julia, when they were teenagers. He was 15 years old and promenading through Sefton Park in Liverpool one day, wearing a bowler hat and displaying a cigarette holder. On a park bench opposite a pond, he saw Julia Stanley, just 14. He sat down and began chatting her up, saying she was lovely. She said his hat looked silly. He threw it in the pond. That kind of impetuosity, however, was the theme of Alf's life. The same year they married, 1938, World War II broke out in Europe, and Alf became a kind of tramp seaman, working on merchant ships mainly. He sent home his checks at first, but after 1943 he disappeared without a trace until 1945. When his mad scheme to take off with John to New Zealand was discovered in 1946, one of the most painful episodes in John's life occurred. His parents forced him to choose which one he wanted to be with. He was only 5 years old and tried, but his Aunt Mimi Smith, Julia's sister, with the help of Liverpool's social services, stepped in, and John ended up living with her. His parents drifted away and became shadows in his life. The England that Lennon grew up in during the late 1940s and into the 1950s contributed to the surliness that American fans noticed later about British rock and roll bands like The Who, The Kinks, The Animals, and The Rolling Stones. To the post-war generation in Britain, life had a dreary meanness to it, a direct result of 2 world wars that had strapped the resources of the island nation to the limit. Food was rationed until well into the 1960s. Housing was pretty shabby, especially in urban areas such as Liverpool, because luxuries were always at a premium. Even sanitation was subpar. Ringo contracted tuberculosis at 13, a life-threatening disease he said was nothing out of the ordinary in his working-class neighborhood. People were dying in their living rooms. Coal shortages, milk shortages, gas shortages, or just having to put a coin in a meter for 30 minutes of heat were daily reminders of the sorriness of living in an empire decaying after 2 massive military conflicts. Added to this was a tremendous legacy of grief. 900,000 British men were killed in World War I and 383,000 in World War II. At intersections in London, veterans missing an arm or leg and begging was a common sight, no different, unfortunately, from the days of George III, 200 years earlier. Among Lennon's generation, there was no romance associated with going to war or the sacrifices their parents had made. A group of post-war British playwrights and novelists, Harold Pinter, John Braine, Kingsley Amis, John Osborne, Alan Sillitoe, and others, expressed outright contempt for playing by the rules, politeness, class, and the social status of young people. They were known as the Angry Young Men.
To keep listening to this audiobook for free, click the link in the description. It will take you to a free Audible trial where you can listen to this and many other books for free for 30 days.